Hello friends, after this particular video you will have a sound knowledge over payment gateway. Today I will show you all the steps involved if you have to implement Razorpay within a Django application. So first you need to connect to Razorpay official website, and then you need to come to dashboard, and once you reach dashboard, I'm using the test mode as you can see over here. Then you will come to the account section, and over here you will get the option for API key. You need to activate the API key so that your project can authorize Razorpay to perform the transaction part. Razorpay will provide you two API informations, and that's what we will see in the code. So let's move on. I've created one sample demo Razorpay application. This is a dedicated application for the payment gateway and all its necessary steps. At first I need to tell you that in order to implement Razorpay you need to create three models, like for example user, the person who is going to perform the transaction, the user details, the order, you're going to do the payment on basis of some order, right? So that order model, and finally the payment. These three are the minimum requirements for any successful completion of a payment gateway. So as you can see over here, I have got two user account. Let me just reload the tab, and as I scroll right, there are two email accounts. So I will be using any one of this. Like for example, I will connect to peter@gmail.com. Let me show you what are the model which I'm using. So let's come to the account part, and let me show you the model over here. So this is the minimum structure required to create the user model. As you can see over here, I have got roles. These are the different roles, and we saw that the Peter belongs to the role called organizer. It's up to you to determine what role you want to put a particular user. Although I have a model over here called user token, right now token I'm not involved with, but definitely in some video I will talk about the JWT token. Let's come to the model called orders, and this is a very bare minimum attribute which I need. So you can see over here from the user table, the user is over here as a foreign key. So that means the order will be placed by an user, and the same user can place multiple orders. So for that reason foreign key is there. Each order will have some amount involved, and what is the status of the order transaction. So initially when the transaction will get over, I mean the payment will get over, we would find the status would be pending because the order is yet to be delivered, with that notion. The time when you are creating the transaction, and a very important thing, if successfully the transaction takes place in Razorpay, Razorpay would generate an auto-generated ID, and that would refer as an order ID. We'll store that order ID inside the order table, because later on you need to track each order on basis of this order ID of that been generated by Razorpay. So this is going to be a very crucial, and it will be generated with the package that we will implement, which is called Razorpay. Let's move on to the model that is payment, and here it comes. Well, again the user is involved over here. That means the same user can perform multiple transactions, but each order would be a unique order. You won't be getting the same order ID for another order. So that's the reason it's one-to-one, but whereas this one is a foreign key. Okay, so that's how the references are done. You're paying an amount, so the amount would be there. What is the payment mode which you are doing, and what is the status? Well, after completion, if everything goes well, then the status would be success, right? And instead, whether it's a boolean value, true and false, and a transaction ID. This is something that is very important, and again this would be coming from Razorpay. So just we saw that Razorpay would generate an order ID. Similarly, after successful completion, Razorpay would also generate a transaction ID. That means that would determine that your transaction has been completed successfully, and again the timestamp when this whole process was implemented. So this is what the model of the payment app would look like. Yes, there are views involved. Well, I will be focusing primarily on the payment part because this is where the main part is. So let me take you to the urls.py. Over here we have got three URLs. We will visit all these endpoints, and we have also got three function-based view. Over here, I will be exploring all these three function-based views separately to make you understand how is the flow of control is going to take place, and these are very important. Apart from this, I also need the template. Well, I also need JavaScript. I will get into this because this is the most striking part of the entire application. Well, there are a few templates required that we will explore as we run, and let's come to the JavaScript part, specifically AJAX. You have seen many videos of mine where I have been continuously working on asynchronous communication implemented by AJAX. Well, sign up and login, these are something we have done it in previous videos, I believe. So for that reason, I am not exploring them. I'm directly coming to the pay button now, because this is something which you have to be very careful, and this is what you need to understand for the successful payment. We will explore this, and prior to that, let's start the application first. Okay, my server is already on. As you can see, it's already on, or it's not. Okay, let me run the server. Yeah, let me activate the server. Yes, here it is. So the project is running smoothly now. Let me reload the tab. Perfectly fine. If I want, I can just clear the history once. If any issue is there, it would get rid of. And now we are all good to go. Okay, right. So as I said, I will log with Peter. So let me just change this to peter@gmail.com, and I provide the password, and I click on the login button. Yes, I have successfully logged in, and now here I have an option called payment. So this is something which is most important. So the moment I will click the payment tab, that will bring me to the project urls.py. So let me take you to the project urls.py. Here it is, and this particular endpoint will get fired. So in the URL, you will see localhost 8000/payment, and that would take me to the payment URL. So let me go to the app payment, and you will land immediately to this particular endpoint. So what is there in this particular endpoint? Well, it's simply calling a template. As you can see right over here, it's calling a template. Great. So let me just click on this, and as I do that, it simply calls a template where you are supposed to pay supposed to put an amount over here to perform the transaction. Well, let me explore you what is there in this particular app. First and foremost thing is that you need to pip install Razorpay. This is a package that you need to install. Thereafter, you will be able to execute all the transactions related to Razorpay once successfully you have done it. Now, as I said, that before you get into this, you need to come to the API key, and you have to go for the API settings. That is something which is very crucial. Let me show you what I have done. So let me come to the project now. Let me come to the settings.py. Inside settings.py, I have given a call to the .env. Unfortunately, I won't be able to open the .env because I have set my credential right over there. What you will be getting is something called Razorpay ID and Razorpay secret key. So these two things you are going to get. Razorpay ID is both are unique. Okay, you need to embed both of these in your project, and that's what exactly I did inside my view. As you can see over here, I'm giving call to settings. From there, I'm picking up the Razorpay key ID, and I'm also picking up the Razorpay key secret, which you will be getting once you have done the registration inside the official site of Razorpay. So these are the two API keys that Razorpay is going to provide, and you need to save it and secure it as well. So that's the reason I kept it inside the .env file. And as you can see over here, these are the keys which Razorpay has provided, but later on I will change this key after the execution of the project. So these are the keys that you will be getting from the Razorpay. Great, good to go, right? Okay, that's nice. So you have to give a call to the Razorpay package. The package has a class called client, and finally you are providing this as an authentication to identify that yes, you are a valid subscriber of the official application Razorpay. And from there, I'm getting an object or a reference called client. Great, and this is what going to be the center of attraction. Okay, so let's come to my template, and as I provide my input over here, then I will click the submit button. Great. So once I click submit button, but before that, let me show you the template as well. So let's come to the template part, And here is the payment folder. Let's come to the HTML. This is the HTML which I have created. Well, as you know that I always work on the AJAX because that's how the synchronous communication is going to take place. And for that, there are some like predefined steps which you have to do it. For example, you always have to work on the form tag, which I have really worked on. CSRF token you will be getting from the backend. So that means when you have given a call to this particular route, if I open the view source, you will find the CSRF token is right over here. Scroll down and here is a CSRF token which is actually been a hidden value, right? So when you are requesting a template to the server would provide the template with the proper validation that this particular template is authentic. Just a second. Just to verify that this particular application or this particular template is valid, the server is going to provide us cross-site request forgery. For that reason, a valid token which you need to forward to the server after submission. We will see that, don't worry. So that's the reason why I have written over here the CSRF token part involved. Great. That implies that the token would be there coming from the server side. This is the text box where the user is supposed to provide input, and thereafter user is supposed to click on this submit button, right? This would eventually give a call to my AJAX, and as you can see over here that I have got one endpoint, right? This is the ID of the button. If you want, you can just go and check, reconfirm once again. Yes, pay hyphen button. So control will come over here and eventually will give a call to the event called click, because you did click the button, right? So let me explore you first over here, because the backend would be getting invoked with the help of AJAX. So for that reason, you need to understand what exactly is happening over here. So let me close the AJAX segment first. So as you did see over here that the text box has got an DOM element called amount. You need to collect this amount, right? And for that reason, what I'm doing over here is I'm picking up the amount and I'm storing it inside the variable. I'm just confirming once again that the amount shouldn't be less than 0. You don't go for any negative transaction, right? In case if the user does that, it will simply be like you will be getting an alert, and then it will return the control, because there is no point of proceeding further. If not the amount is negative, then smoothly you move on. So the very first thing what you will do is that, well, I'm printing in the console just to confirm that everything is working fine or not. So after you have done this validation, you will straightforward move to the AJAX, because this is a high time to perform the transaction. Okay, so let's see what exactly AJAX is doing over here. Look at this endpoint. Well, this is a root route followed by the payment, which we already saw in the urls.py of the project. So let me show you one more time. Let's come to the urls.py of the project, and here is the payment subdomain, followed by, you will jump to the app urls.py. So if you come to the app urls.py, we have an endpoint called create-order. That what is getting called. Great. So this will take us to the function-based view of the app payment, right? So let's come over here. As you did see that from here we are giving a call to the create order. So we are jumping to this particular endpoint. This is a function-based view, right? So we'll see what is there inside this, because this is how the transaction would start. I know there are a lot of steps involved, and that's the beauty of payment gateway, and that's the reason why you need to just come back and watch this particular video repeatedly, so that you are quite comfortable to understand the flow of control. Since in the time of interview they would ask you, or they might give you an assignment where you have to complete the payment gateway within a stipulated time span. So for that reason, you have to have a clear idea about how the flow of control is taking place, right? So you have given a call to this particular function, create order, and over here we will perform some transaction, right? So since you have clicked the button, so of course our main focus will be on the post. Over here get is not that important, because you have already given the input and thereafter you are clicking the button. So for that reason the post will be important over here. So let's consider that I have given an amount like 199, and before that let me take you to the dashboard. Let me just reload the tab to show you that how long ago I did my last transaction. So here the result page gets loaded. If I scroll down over here, you will see almost 30 minutes ago I have done the transaction. That's really great, and this is the ID which I was talking about, the payment ID. Okay, fine, very nice. So let's come and let's explore the code right over here. So the user will click on submit button, I mean this particular submit button. Oh, this particular submit button, and thereby AJAX is getting called, and AJAX is giving a call to this particular endpoint right from here. While AJAX is giving a call, AJAX will send the data in the form of the post method, so of course everything will be hidden. So AJAX is going to forward two things. One is the amount that the user has provided in this particular text box, that amount, and of course the CSS token AJAX will forward to the server just to reconfirm that yes, everything is valid. And thereafter the view will receive this, and then the post transaction gets executed. Now we are exactly the core part of our transaction process. Let's understand one by one. The amount that is coming from AJAX is now going to be converted into integer format. Along with that, it will be converted to paisa. So you are sending 100 rupees, but that would be converted to paisa. For that reason, over here we have gone for multiplication of 100, and this ensures that the transaction will be in the form of paisa. Be very careful about this. So the amount is in paisa right now. I just wanted to show you in the console. For that reason I went for the print statement. Okay, of course, again one more time I'm just reconfirming that the amount shouldn't be negative. Okay, great. Now we are creating one object, I mean one dictionary, where I have mentioned the amount which I have received, the currency in INR, and the payment capture is true. This is like a boolean. Okay, that fine. It's just to get an idea how this is working. So this particular object you need to create, which I have to forward it to Razorpay. So this object or this dictionary is very crucial. The next few steps are involved with connecting Razorpay, and as I said already, you need to have the following dependency by implementing pip install Razorpay. So now I am trying to reach the Razorpay server, but for that reason it is good practice to write it within a loop, because it might not be accessible immediately. So for that reason you might have to give a repetitive attempt. So I've gone for a loop 3 times, and within that the backend will be able to reach the Razorpay server. Really great, isn't it? So I already talked about the client. The client is getting created with the Razorpay secret key ID we already saw from the environment, and that what is responsible to give a call to a property called order, and thereby it will give a call to the method called create. This create belongs to the create of Razorpay. So you are creating an initial phase where the transaction would start. But wait a second. Before you get into transaction, Razorpay has to start one wizard. We will see in fact that as well. So create, I'm not able to click right now because that would actually have a time bound. So let me just go through this code, and then I will get into the execution part. So this is going to give a call to a create, and while creating that wizard, it will pass the following information, and from there I will get one response, which I would print of course in the console of the terminal to show you what are the initial transactions it is coming across. And of course once the transaction has started, once the visit has started, so there is no point of continuing the loop further. So we'll terminate from the loop, but we'll stay back in the same function. For that reason, break keyword is there. During this order creation process, if there is any issue, that will be handled by the exception block, and explicitly it falls under Razorpay, because you might come across different issues. So for that reason, giving a call to Razorpay exceptional block, you will be able to identify and pinpoint what exactly went wrong. So thereafter the order response contain all the details. So let me come to the next part. Inside the order response there would be one key called ID, which will be there. Just we want to ensure that the ID exists, the ID key exists. If in case is not, well, that will happen in case if there is an issue, then there will be a failure. Otherwise we are all good to move on. Now we come to the model called order. We have to insert the following information which we have received, and for that reason already I showed you that there is an app called order, and order comes up with a model, and let me show you that this is a model. So some information we are going to implement right over here. The order has a attribute, an attribute called user. That information will be stored. So who is the user who has logged in? That particular user information will come over here. I can show you the table of order over here. As you can see, this is the user who has actually logged in. Okay, who has not logged in. Yeah, after logging in, the successful transaction or the transaction that has been initiated. So I will be seeing one more new record that will populate once I start the transaction. And since I will be going with the Peter, because Peter has got an ID2, we will find inside this user ID there will be an option value called 2. Okay, that's great. So here the foreign key gets into it. Then I have to convert paisa back to rupees. For that reason, we are dividing it again with 100 and we are getting the total price, and that's what we are storing inside this particular variable, total price. Great. And the default status I have given for pending, so you will always find pending like this. This is value, find pending, because the transaction is over, but this order status is generally focusing on the delivery part, or whether the customer has received the order or not. For that reason, since that has not been done, so for that reason the status is pending. It has got nothing to do with the Razorpay. Okay, so by default I have given pending. And I said there will be a timestamp when the transaction was created, and that you can see right over here, the timestamp. It's early morning today at 5 o'clock I started this process. And then finally you will be getting the Razorpay order, which I have been saying. So that order will be coming from Razorpay. That means the order dictionary which I have passed over here and which I have received, right over here. This dictionary hold the ID, and that's what I want to save it. So the dictionary has an ID attribute, and that's what I'm saving it inside the Razorpay order ID, as you can see right over here. So that implies that the initial transaction has started very securely. That was a part of the order. Now let's move on to the model called payment. What we are getting is the payment. Again, we are performing an insert operation. The user information we are storing it, the order which we receive over here, that also we are storing it, amount we are storing it in the rupee format. The payment method, of course, Razorpay, and the status over here is also pending. But this status will get changed once the transaction is fully completed. What do I mean by fully completed? Well, if you see, the transaction has got basically 3 steps. What are those 3 steps? Of course, the first step is to activate the payment gateway. Second step is to deduct the money from your account after proper validation. And the third step is to transfer the money to the receiver account after validation. So while this transaction is going on, in between, that means amount deducted from your account, and in the near future it would be added in the receiver account. In between that, the status is going to be pending. But once the receiver receives the payment, we will change the status from pending to complete. So that is, pending would be until the receiver receives the money. Okay, so it's in between stage. But once the receiver receives the money, then the status will be changed from pending to complete. We'll see even that part also. And the order ID we are also storing in the transaction ID. That's really great. Okay, so that's how the payment model actually gets executed, and we are returning a response. This response will be actually received by your AJAX. So AJAX is going to receive the response, and that would come inside the success, inside the data part of the AJAX. So let me expand the success part, and don't get scared by seeing the success, because success has got again another call to a new AJAX, which we will see. Don't worry. Where is that access call? If I expand this object call option, here you will find AJAX is there. But don't worry, we will go step by step. Nothing to worry about it. Don't get scared of at all, because this is a very interesting part. So success received the response that is coming right over here. Okay, let me close this payment tab because I have to switch from this to this. So success, this particular response where the order ID, the Razorpay key, which is my user ID, the key, not the user ID, the key that has been received by the user after creating an account in Razorpay, that, and the amount, right? So this information is very crucial. So this information is what I'm actually passing on, right? Great. So this information is actually coming to the front end, that is there over here. Okay, that's what I'm passing it to the AJAX, and that is getting through the success. So AJAX, in the console log of the browser, you can see what you're receiving. Now over here I have created this particular object, but this object I'm going to pass into the constructor of Razorpay. This constructor will give a call to the widget, which actually help us to complete the transaction part. And once the widget gets initialized, it will start to work, and then this response will be executed. So until and unless this part is not completely done, this portion will not be done. This is very interesting. Over here, initially one can have a confusion that why this portion is not working, and the answer to this question is, if you see, this is a declaration. Here you have got an assignment, so this is a declaration, so you're declaring an object. So this object will be activated once this set of transaction gets over, then only. So at the very beginning, this object will not be executing. So when I start the process, you will find a dialog box which you must have seen number of times, that comes from any payment gateway. Once you complete that dialog box process, then only this option will get activated. So let me just show you this option, and then I will start with the activation part. Okay. Over here, if you see, some keys are been involved, right? But how are you getting these keys? That are also very important. We will see that part. Don't worry. You have to hold your patience over here. And over here you have got some handler function, and then you have got an AJAX, and this AJAX is going to give a call to another endpoint. If you remember, there were two endpoints. The first one was the template. Skip that one. The main two template endpoint was this two. We have already covered the first one, and that's where the transaction started. And then comes the verify payment. This will be called automatically by the AJAX once the initial transaction is over, and there where this AJAX is getting called. So we will explore this part, but for that reason we have to get into the activation process. Then only we'll be able to understand what is happening right over here. And here comes my view. So this was the portion of the create order which was been completed, and once it's been completed, the response went back to AJAX. The response came to success function. So after receiving the success function, then this widget will be starting, and thereafter in the internal AJAX call, which we saw inside the options, here we are giving a call to the AJAX. So thereafter you will be getting into this particular function based view. So let me explain this function based view, and then we'll come back right over here. So as you did see that when we came to this AJAX, already the initial phase is done, and we have received the response, right? We have received the response from our create order. We have received this particular order ID that came. So that order ID is now I passed it already to AJAX, and that order ID is now been, from this order ID I'm getting what? Look over here, I have sent three information. Let me close this. I've sent three information. One is their order ID, key, and amount. Those three is what you are seeing right over here. See, the key is actually the Razorpay key which I have received, which is there in my environment variable. So this is the key which I have received from the Razorpay after creating an account. That's what I'm passing. The second information thing I'm passing is the amount. Yes, the amount which is right over here, this amount. And the third one is the order ID that got generated. So these three things I'm passing. These are the three things I'm getting from Razorpay, and I have created three more keys as a constant. Number one, the currency I'm using, INR. The name I have given to an app, because this name will be visible very soon. I have given a name like buy book payment, which you will see in the dialog box of Razorpay. I will show you that. And the description, just short description about what exactly this transaction is all about, that I have written over here. So these three I'm receiving from Razorpay, and these are my constant values. And then I'm giving a call to a function which is an anonymous function, you can well understand. And this anonymous function will actually, just to see what data I'm getting, the Razorpay payment ID, this will come eventually, Razorpay payment ID, which I will receive as a response. So when the response will come? Well, this response will come when the Razorpay dialog box has actually completed the work, and then I will receive the response. And well, you have to wait for that. I know I'm telling all the thing before I execute, so that you can understand how the thing is related with. So that will come over here, and eventually I will be giving a call to my AJAX, because I have to trigger this thing to my endpoint, so that I need to store the information in my model as well. So for storing the final information, I'm giving a call to this particular endpoint where it is giving call to the payment, which is my app, and verify hyphen payment. The verify hyphen payment is this particular endpoint, and that brings us to this particular function based view now, where I will be storing final information. See, there are so many steps involved, so you have to go through this video with pause and repeatedly. I do understand that. So here I'm forwarding the endpoint, and this is what I'm forwarding. Look over here, I will be getting some information. And that information will be actually inside the response. I told you already, this dialog box will get triggered, and from this dialog box I will be getting some information that I will be passing inside this response. So this phase needs to be executed first, followed by this particular phase. So this will come later on. First, the dialog box will be generated, initial transaction like my phone numbers, to whom the amount will be transferred, and the amount, all this information I will provide over here, and then eventually this particular option will come over here, and then this response will come. So this will come later on, and from there I will be getting the final order ID, final payment ID, and there will be a signature. So these three things we are going to see that will be generated from the Razorpay after successful transaction, and then finally we will receive a success, and that will say that yes, our transaction has been successfully over, otherwise we'll receive some error. Okay, so let's move on now, and let's see how exactly the whole thing is happening right over here. So I am already logged into it, and here is the amount I have given. So last time, let's reload the tab just to show you once again that the transaction I have done a long ago. It's been more than an hour by now. I woke up and I have been doing this particular coding, and finally I have, see over here, the transaction has been an hour ago. Okay, it's been hour ago. Okay, so let's come over here and let's go for this, and now I click on submit button. As I do that, immediately you will see this is what I was talking about. See over here, the timer is on. It will give me around 12 minutes to complete this. So this dialog box is what I was talking about, and this dialog box got generated because of this object being called. Number one. Number two, I already said that there will be some caption involved. What is the caption? See over here, I said that the caption would be by book payment. Look over here, the by book payment is a caption that is given, by book payment. So it is up to you to determine what the caption would be. This is the phone number which I am using. This is my phone number, I mean the sender's phone number, and you have to use the phone number. You have to give the phone number of the receiver as well. So using this particular phone number, so you need to change your phone number when you will be working at your end. So this is my phone number. Okay, so now at the end of the day, what you will be doing, so as I said that this route will be executed first, and thereafter once we complete this, I will be getting a response, and that response will eventually give a call to the success. So success will come much later on. Okay, but at first we will create this, and we will store the information inside our order. Remember this, first we have to go and pass the information inside the order, and thereafter we'll come right over here. Got it? So that's how the whole process is going to work. So let's move on now, and let me show you how the process is working. So yes, I am going to use this particular format through which I will be doing the transaction. As I click on this, it will ask me my UPI ID, and that's my phone number. So I will give my UPI ID over here, 8981728365, and of course it will validate. So all this thing is happening, and while, as you can see over here, we already received, see, we have already received the order ID. This is the order ID. We have already received the key. Well, the key is the key which I have already saved in my system, and see, my amount was 199, that was in rupee, but it has been converted into paisa, so it's 199 followed by 00. So this is in paisa. So that means this transaction has already been generated. And so let's go to my order table to see that is there any see over here, the record just got inserted at this point of time. See, and I already said this is the user Peter who has logged into it. So if you come to the account, you will see this is the Peter who has actually got involved in this transaction, and the reason why the ID is 2 over here. So inside the order, inside the user ID, you are seeing 2. So the order ID got generated, and this is the amount which I am paying, and this is the transaction that got saved. That means the moment you activate the payment gateway, immediately your order generated is done. So that's where the view So let me take you to the view once again. So this was the view which is responsible to store this information order. Not only that, your payment also information got saved, but the status will be pending. Okay, so this is about the payment. So let's go and check the model once again for the payment, and let me reload the tab, and that will give us the fourth record. See over here, the payment is still incomplete, because as you can see over here, the payment is incomplete. Once the verify function will get executed, thereafter the payment will get changed to the status payment will get changed to complete, and that for that reason we have to complete the entire transaction, and thereafter we will be receiving three information from the Razorpay. The order ID will be same, the payment ID will be generated, and the signature. We will see these things. So that makes one thing very clear, that when the process starts, in the background your order table and the payment table is updated. So see over here, the transaction ID is 6CU. Let's come to my order, and over here also the transaction ID or the order ID is same, because this is the primary key that gets saved over here as a foreign key. If you remember, in my model, let me take you to the model. So this was the model of order, and this is the model of the payment. Over here, if you see, the transaction ID is coming from the order. Okay, from the order it's coming. So both the order and the transaction ID both will be same. The order ID and the transaction ID both will be same. Okay, remember this, and that's what we are seeing over here, right? Now, so the timer is still going on. Now if I click on the verify button, remember one thing again, I'm telling you, the initial status was pending. Over here we saw pending, but once we have successfully completed, we will change the status of payment from pending to complete. So that's the reason why over here we are still seeing pending, but once the transaction gets over, we will find that this is going to be transformed to complete. And one last thing we'll also do, the payment is paid is going to be true, which is by default is false right now. As you can see over here, it's false. And if you come to the model part, I'm showing you all this thing very fast because we are running short of time. So by default it's false, but once the transaction completes, then we will change it to true, and that's the reason why here you are seeing false. Great. Now let's move on and let's complete this process. So here we got the order ID, we got the key which has already been received, and this is the amount. And let me go and click on the verify button, and here is the verification taking place. This is the endpoint of my API, I mean the UPI ID, right? And the confirmation is going on. Great, and it's been successful, and we have already received a ID. This is the ID of the payment. This is the ID. Payment got successfully completed. Now we have received a payment ID, and this payment ID is what been forwarded to AJAX. I already told you that how the transaction works. This is was my key. Once I complete this thing, once I complete the entire widget, I will be getting one payment ID. That payment ID will now be forwarded right over here. So I have received the order ID, and now I receive the payment ID and the payment signature. So if you open the terminal, you will get a very important information. See, order ID, this we already received, right? This we already received. Order ID we already received, but now we have to see this particular payment. So this payment ID which we are seeing in my web page, see, payment successful, payment ID is this. So payment successful. Now if I go to my model, if I reload the tab, you see over here it's still showing pending. Wait, now if I click on the OK button, and then it will say payment verified successfully, and you are getting the payment response. Now look over here, this is very important. I am clicking on the OK button, and now if I come, so you have received the payment ID. This is the payment ID, this is the order ID. Okay, so if you look over here, the order ID which was initiated at the beginning and the order ID after successful payment, both are very same. And you have received one signature. This signature will see, this is a very long string. You have received the signature. This signature ensured that your transaction is successfully completed. So remember one thing, initially the order ID which you will be receiving and the final order ID both will be same, but new data which you will be receiving is the payment ID and the signature. This signature ensures that all the transaction went on. This signature is like your JWT signature, you can say so. And here is your payment ID. Now if you go and check your payment status which was initially pending, I believe Now it will not show pending, rather it will show complete, and the paid which was showing false initially, now it is showing success. And finally what we have received, we have done the whole stuff. Got it? So always remember, when you are working on AJAX, this success will involve another call to our uh, another function based view, because we have to trigger these information. So for that reason, payment slash verify payment is very important. Only when you call to this verify payment, you will be receiving your final updates that will be coming from Razorpay, and the payment ID, the signature, these things I need, and then you will be updating your table. So for that reason, you have to give a call to the nested AJAX. And as I said, you have received all these three informations. So if you want, you can come to the console and you can see over here this information: I have received payment response. So this is the line which you are seeing from your success part. So if I expand the success part, see over here the payment verified, this that particular dialog box came. We have already seen that one, right? So finally we have understood that whenever we are going for any transaction, over here there are couple of things involved. The first is to initialize the process with the help of one endpoint, which we have done over here. This is the endpoint that initializes the process, and after the initialization takes place, we are going to give a call to the Razorpay widget. So this is a Razorpay widget where we have to provide the credential, and once that credential gets over, finally we will come to this particular object whereby we are going to provide the final completion, and then we are going to get, well, order ID we already got at the beginning of the transaction, payment ID will be provided, the signature will be provided. If you want, you can save them also in the database, that's up to you. And finally you are also sending the token. This is also very good, because whenever you are giving a call from AJAX to the function based view, the token has to be forwarded. So this is taking us to the final view, function based view. Over here we are receiving those informations, and that information is also getting displayed in our console with the form of print verification, like print verification successful, plus we are also displaying all the data. So if you come over here, see, you will be print verification successful, this particular message you can see, that means all the transaction has been successfully completed, and then you're updating a final model that will register the information. Okay, so that's how this thing is going to work. And finally, since we have already completed our transaction, now we can come to the dashboard, and let's reload the tab, and I believe this time it will show that the transaction has just recently completed with a value 199. So let me just see it once again, and as I scroll down over here, I believe it will show me just 5 minutes ago the transaction of 199 was completed, and this was the payment ID RJK. We have received it, and if you come to the browser, you will find, see, RJK, that's the payment ID which we have received. So finally what we understood that when we come to the Razorpay, you will be seeing the payment ID, but before the payment ID gets generated, we also understood that there will be an order ID that is also going to be generated, and this order ID will be also passed to the final payment. That's the reason why the payment ID and the signature is getting generated. Okay, oh my god, it's a pretty long video. I believe if you go through this video repeatedly, this whole transaction will be crystal clear to you, how exactly the flow of control is taking place, how exactly AJAX is working, and the models are responsible. So there were 3 models involved, and finally the whole response we write on these function based view. So there were a couple of function based view that was responsible for successful completion of this entire transaction. Okay, with that we come to an end of this particular video presentation. I hope you like this video. See you soon. Bye bye.